On January 7th, David Bennett woke up just like he had every day before. However, this time was slightly different because he had a new heart. Mr. Bennett was waking up from the first successful surgery in which a pig heart was transplanted into a human. Now, most of us don't have to think about organ transplants that often, which is probably a good thing. However, according to the website for the United Network for Organ Sharing, Last Access, October 8th, 2022, almost 30,000 organ transplants have already taken place in the United States just this year. These procedures have given new opportunities to patients both young and old whose conditions were previously seen as being untreatable. Mr. Bennett's story is particularly noteworthy because his procedure was the culmination of decades of research on cross-species transplantation, otherwise known as xenotransplantation. Xenotransplantation is on the verge of revolutionizing the medical field, so it's important that we understand this process by first taking a look at how humans began to use animal products medically, before then looking at how years of research have resulted in modern xenotransplantation procedures, most of which involve porcine or pig organs. Finally, we'll look to the future and attempt to predict how all of this research will be applied in the coming decades. Xenotransplantation isn't quite as new as some may assume. In fact, the first documented medical procedure involving animal components took place all the way back in France in 1667, according to a 2017 article from the Smithsonian Magazine. The medical pioneer in question here was Jean-Baptiste Denis, the personal physician to King Louis XIV. Denis transfused lamb blood into 4 young men, 2 of which died very shortly after their procedures. This resulted in such procedures being banned in France, as well as effectively becoming medical taboo for the next few centuries. Explorations into xenotransplantation picked up again in the mid-20th century, when doctors began to realize that the reason for so many previous failures in these medical endeavors was the fact that the human immune system was rejecting the foreign entities. According to a February 2022 article from the American Association of Medical Colleges, doctors eventually started to implement immunosuppressive drugs when transplanting primate livers, kidneys, and hearts into humans. Then, as explained in a February 2022 statement from the NYU Langone Transplant Institution, porcine, or pig, organs started to replace primate organs in these experimental procedures. This is because pig organs are more similar in size to human organs than primates are. Also, due to having more genetic differences from humans than primates do, pig organs are less likely to transfer deadly diseases during these experimental procedures. Now that we've looked at xenotransplantation from its earliest applications, we're ready to dive into the modern work that's being done with pig organs. Modern procedures involving pig components have had increasingly successful results that cause doctors to have an optimistic outlook on the future of xenotransplantation. A 2016 article from the Journal of Tissue Engineering discusses the effectiveness of using porcine acellular lung matrix in healing damaged tissue in rats. Cellular matrices are mesh-like patches that surgeons use when they're finishing a procedure. The matrix acts as a helping hand for the afflicted area by supporting the growth of new cells. The goal for the procedure using the porcine matrix in rats was to imitate how currently used cellular matrices aid the healing process in humans. At the end of the study, the researchers concluded that the porcine matrix had more cellular density and grew more blood vessels than standard cellular matrices. Another medical innovation involving porcine components is porcine fibrin sealant. Fibrin sealant is a liquid that is applied to wounds after injury, and it's meant to speed up the healing process. A June 2022 article from the Journal of Evidence-Based Complementary and Alternative Medicine describes an experiment in which porcine fibrin sealant was used to treat flesh wounds in rats, and was shown to speed up the healing process more than traditional medical sealant did. The future of xenotransplantation became increasingly bright when doctors were successful in transplanting the first porcine heart into the aforementioned David Bennett in January 2022. NBC News published an article describing his story in July 2022. The procedure went smoothly, and Mr. Bennett was able to survive with the pig heart for 2 more months before passing away. His cause of death is the greatest takeaway from this medical venture. Mr. Bennett died because his body was ultimately too weak and the porcine heart failed. However, his body didn't reject the heart. Since organ rejection wasn't linked to his cause of death, the researchers considered the procedure a success, which means that porcine xenotransplantation is not only medically viable, but also that there is tons of room for improvement so that similar procedures can continue to save lives. We've looked at xenotransplantation from its earliest applications and what's being done with it today. So now, let's look to the future and attempt to predict how all of this will come to fruition in the coming decades. Current xenotransplantation research can be seen as an investment in the humans of the future because it could be the key to solving a huge problem in the medical field: a shortage of donor organs, especially kidneys. According to organdonor.gov, last accessed September 25th, 2022, there were 90,463 patients on the waiting list for a kidney transplant in 2021. Of these individuals, only 27,760, or about 27%, actually received a transplant. Also in 2021, researchers at the University of Alabama at Birmingham were able to transplant pig kidneys into brain-dead humans, as explained in a January 2022 article from the Scientific American. The article goes on to explain that these pig kidneys were able to perform their vital functions for an extended period of time, or at least until the experiment was concluded. The article also explains that the researchers at the university are currently working on obtaining the necessary green light from the FDA in order to start clinical trials using pig kidneys in non-brain-dead humans. This implies that xenotransplantation has the potential to meet the demand for kidneys as well as other donor organs that will inevitably be greater in the future. Furthermore, many researchers are optimistic that the current techniques being used in these experimental xenotransplantation procedures can be applied to other areas of medical research. A release from the Mayo Clinic in July 2022 explains that currently, the animals being used in these xenotransplantation procedures are genetically modified in a way that reduces the risk of aversive effects from these procedures by making it harder for the recipient's body to recognize that the new organ is actually from a different species. This makes an organ rejection much less likely, which leads to the long-term success of these procedures. After the positive results of David Bennett's surgery, many doctors are optimistic that these techniques can be applied to other areas of medicine, such as stem cell transplants. The aforementioned July 22 article from the Mayo Clinic explains that animal stem cells could be genetically modified and then transplanted into humans to aid in the regeneration of damaged tissue. This application of stem cell technology, plus the reduced chance of organ rejection and the possibility of having a greater source of donor organs, means that xenotransplantation truly has the potential to transform the medical field as we know it. From early experimentations in animal blood transfusions to a man literally surviving with a porcine heart, xenotransplantation has undoubtedly progressed in leaps and bounds since its beginning. Today, we explored how humans first began to use animal products in a medical setting with very few successes for multiple centuries, then how we honed our techniques, which resulted in modern xenotransplantation procedures with porcine components, before finally looking to the future and attempting to predict how this research can be applied in areas such as stem cell transplants. Thanks to patients like David Bennett, the use of porcine organs is becoming increasingly normalized in the medical field and will save countless lives in the future.